Hey guys, and welcome to the realm of magical creatures. We have Skaven, dinosaurs riding dinosaurs, gigantic glorious minotaurs and undeadly foes. And what are we going to be doing today? Watching two men fight each other with just a load of basic ass geezers. We have the Black Thorn, I believe it was Maximus, in charge of the force of the Empire and Bretonnia. So in a game with such fantastical elements, creatures, dwarfs, goblins, all this glorious stuff, the old man-on-man showdown can actually be pretty good fun, and I think both these players are going to be trying to showcase that here today. So on the left-hand side, we have a nice little skirmish contingent of cavalry here. Double Outriders accompanying double Outriders with grenade launchers. A really lovely combo. Grenade launchers will decimate peasant archers, any peasants to be honest in general, men-at-arms, and the entire infantry corps of the Bretonnian forces. And if you try to hunt them down, the Outriders can do some really good armor-piercing shots into those Bretonnian heavy cavalry. Main battle line is going to be made up of swordsmen, cheap, cheerful, happy to be here, including the Sigma Sons, who are ready for a good fat scrap. In the secondary line, we have some spearmen as well as halberdiers, a good counter to all the enemy cavalry that does swoop in. And I quite like this build. There's no back line for the enemy to swoop in on, and that's one thing Bretonnia is quite good at with their fast mobility of their cavalry. So instead, if you get into the back line, you just get poked down by a load of anti-large troops. This is a tactic I see more and more. Leading the forces, no way, we have Geltmeister looking very uncomfortable here on a warhorse. Normally you see Gelt up in the skies or on foot if someone's feeling particularly memey. But I suppose the horse does give him relatively decent mobility at a bit of a cheaper cost. Coming in, of course, with the Staff of Valanis, Arcane Conduit, Plague of Rust and Searing Doom. All good spells. We do have the Royal Altdorf Gryphites, Demigryph Knight, Regiment of Renown, who look so goddamn amazing. They're like ice-cold eyes, and the colour scheme on them really is quite fantastic. Some of the most hard-hitting elite cavalry in the entire game since Total War Warhammer 1 until this day still stand as a very powerful fighting force. Something which is a bit newer, though, to the regime here is the Black Lions, Regiment-renowned War Wagon Hellblaster, which on its day it can do disgusting damage value on the opponent. For the Bretonnians, we have a load of men-at-arms and peasant mobs dotted all the way along, so again, going rather cheap and cheerful in the front line, or cheap and not very cheerful. Peasants do not like being in warfare, and they're going to be backed up by a load of peasant bowmen, who really are the backbone of so many Bretonnian builds. Some of them have box arrows, but for the most part, it's going to be basic peasant bowmen, looking to rain fire, just volley after volley after volley into the enemy to get that glorious value, and they're super cheap. We have a load of cavalry, as you'd expect. We have Knights Errant and Knights of the Realm as well. Looks like the Realm Knights are in the back and the Errants on the flank. Leading the force, as always, it shall be, of course, the beautiful Fey Enchantress, looking to enchant the Empire soldiers into following her lead instead of Balthazar. So Balthazar's got his own level of swagger as well, I suppose. We have Dole Paladin, which are going to be looking at to protect her here, one of which, of course, does come in with that Guardian. Fey Enchantress, Regrowth, Shield of Thorns, and Awakening Wood shall be her weapons of choice. She's obviously riding pretty badass on a unicorn as normal. We have some Field Trebuchets as well. No, just the one Field Trebuchet looking to bring pain from afar, which can be a relatively risky pick up against Empire, as cannons can be seen in this matchup, but I quite like it. It's pretty damn cheap. And if your opponent hasn't brought cannons, then you're going to be able to get some good long-range pressure on them and drag them slowly into the battlefield. One of the more weaker sides of the Black Lions, and I'm a big fan of these guys, a mobile Hellblaster can do disgusting work, but their range isn't fantastic. 250 certainly isn't too shabby, but they can't get too close. Peasant Bowmen obviously training 5 of them at the moment. On this far flank, you can see the poor Knights of the Realm actually get shot by the grenade launchers and take considerable damage. Now, grenade launchers are designed to kill infantry, but in mass, if you have so many grenades launched into the enemy cavalry, they'll still do relatively decent work here. Outriders are falling back at the moment. Knights of the Realm are desperately trying to chase them down, and of course grenade launchers and Outriders can't fire 360 whilst running away. But fear not, the Black Lions have arrived, and they shall roar a thunderous roar of death into the Knights of the Realm, cleaving their way through. Knights, look how many Knights are dying here on this assault, and they are rather wisely falling back. You sometimes have to take those losses and go, you know what, that was a bad push on that flank, I'm going to pull my troops back and reorganize now. What I'd like to see the Bretonnian player do is what he's just doing, actually, these Knights of the Errant here, I believe. Cycle charge the front line and help your peasants win the front line, thus protecting the peasant bowmen, who can rain fire down on the rest of the build. We are seeing a shot come in, a Searing Doom, I believe, on these peasant bowmen, and they're not going to get out of the way in time. Slightly delayed escape there, and it can be really frustrating, these type of spells. Searing Doom, though, I think is relatively good, but stuff like a Burning Head, Pendulums, you simply can't escape them sometimes. Halberdiers are going to be engaged with Knights Errant, but there is the Paladins and Fae here, and at the end of the day, Halberds don't have the greatest melee attack, so as long as you don't stick in the fight too long, it's completely fine to chuck Knights into them, though these Halberds are holding the line rather bravely right now, doing a good job considering they are up against some of the mightiest heroes of legend for Bretonnia. With a little bit of a situation on this right-hand flank where halberds and swordsmen find themselves idle, they need to start whipping themselves up around the flank now that they have won their engagements. Looks like a potion is going to be coming in here, which is basically a bound Comet of Cassandora. It swirls into existence and kaboom, a direct hit. As halberds not having a good time, but it looks like the Empire player was busy microing over on the left-hand flank, and he has crushed it. Spearmen driving back the peasant bowmen. Outriders, grenade launchers now have free reign on this flank, just to start bringing death to the enemy. It looks like the Black Lions, up to 23 kills, are now trying to focus fire the Knights once more in this main fight alongside the Paladins, but they do, of course, have the Charm Shield up and active. Another Searing Doom goes down in the back line, hitting those peasant bowmen whose skin is being melted in to their bone, I suppose, even more, but also the little cloth armor. Not a good day to be a peasant, if it ever is. Grenade launchers are now sitting around the butcher's work of just eviscerating this field trebuchet from existence, and it should do good damage up against their crew. You can see it falling apart rather quickly right now. Fae Enchantress is being dogged and hunted here by the Outriders, as well as the Black Lions nonetheless, but she is still escaping for now and is a tricksy customer, and with both Paladins still alive, you can never count out the forces of Bretonnia. In fact, balance of power is currently favouring them. Knights Errant slam into the rear of those halberds, but they have now turned to engaged, and you don't really want to mess with halberdiers if you're on a horse. You can see many of the knights are starting to be dragged down here, and yes, you can kill a few halberdiers in the process, but it is definitely not worth it. 5 Sigma Sons are currently vibing. Over here we have Spearmen trying to hold back Battle Pilgrims, who are frenzied fanatics salivating at the mouth just to get a brief acknowledgement by the Fae Enchantress, trying their best here, and the Spearmen are going to be their punching bag, unfortunately. In the back line, you can see the Bretonnian forces, though currently victorious on the balance of power, are being forced into a pretty massive retreat, and all their forces are now out of position. Searing Doom does come down, but these peasant bowmen saw what happened to their fellow brethren, and decide this time, you know what, we're probably just going to run away from this and avoid it where possible. Battle Pilgrims are going to attempt here to charge down the Outriders, who've not really followed the Royal Altdorf Gryphites, but they've been doing good work. Up to 47 kills so far, and helping protect the skirmish contingent where possible. And these glorious mounts are going to be slashing, pecking, biting, ripping, tearing, all the good descriptive words onto these Battle Pilgrims. Plus they cause terror, which is actually very powerful up against Bretonnia. The Black Lions have a ton of ammunition left, still 13 volleys. They're up to 44 kills though, so they have been getting busy, up to 750 damage value so far. Looking now to focus down these peasant bowmen and get them off the field, though tying down the Paladins and Fae will certainly be a good idea as well. You can see the Bretonnians going to be slow-balling the game now, falling back and healing up their troops where possible and bogging in these spearmen with men-at-arms, which should go relatively well for the men-at-arms, you would assume. There are some Knights Errant in the distance here who could cause big problems, mainly because they can indeed hop on top of the Black Lines if the Empire player does let his guard down. But looks like he's also quite happy here just to sit back a little while. We have Searing Dooms, we have the Black Lions. Let's just carve apart our opponent from long range, even if they are trying to heal up. It looks like he's mainly focusing on the peasant bowmen, which isn't a bad idea. They're a far easier target to hit than the Paladins, but the Paladins and Fae could become pretty problematic in the late game here, because the Empire forces don't have a Karl Franz, they don't have a Volkmar the Grim, who can kind of take on those foes in combat. The Knights do try sneaking in the back line, but unfortunately for them, they get countercharged, and the Royal Altdorf Gryphites do not give a damn about Knights Errant. They are so below them. They're probably more below the Royal Altdorf Gryphites than peasants are for Grail Guardians. Yeah, I've said it. That's how swaggy the Royal Altdorf Gryphites are. Paladin are now pushing forward, but not before taking some pretty massive volleys here from the Black Lions, who are now a little obstructed. The Royal Altdorf Gryphites are going to hop over here onto the Paladins, trying to surround them. Now, they are anti-large, but the Paladins themselves likewise do counter that with their own anti-large. But Deadly Onslaught, Fear the Fae has been popped, but they've been terror-routed, which is a huge problem right now, as they're now going to get chastened and rode down, and that Favor the Fae really isn't going to amount to much. Outriders are going to have to flee now from the pressure of the Paladin, who's in far heavier armor and a much heavier warhorse. The Outriders should be a bit more nimble and able to escape, and for the first time in the game, balance of power does go in the favour of Empire, as the Paladin is going to be driven off the field here. Black Lions continue to rain fire in, this time at the Fae Enchantress, who's been forced to pop a regrowth onto herself just to keep herself alive. Halberdiers do charge into the fight once more for Sigma, and they crash into the shield wall there of the Men-at-Arms, who, you know, are stabbing and doing some pretty decent work as well. We're going to be getting another Favour of the Fae coming, or is this a Searing Doom? If it is, it's a bit of a misplaced Searing Doom. No, it looks like it is indeed going to be a Searing Doom, as well as a big old Comet Cassandora coming down. Comet Cassandora, unfortunately, but throws a lot of friendly foes as well as the enemy. Searing Doom, once again, going over those archers. It looks like the Empire player really not a big fan of peasants. Paladin is trying to drive now hard to chase down Balthasar Gelt as well as the Black Lions, but look who it is. The Royal Altdorf Gryphites, once again, after finishing off one Paladin, have come in for the second. They actually miss him on that charge there, but Balthasar Gelt make a call here, and he actually takes a huge chunk of damage. Charm Shield has gone down now on the Paladin, but they shall be surrounded by the Royal Altdorfs, plus an Overcast Plague of Rust, lowering the armor to 45, and you can see chunks of flesh and armor being peeled away from him by those twirling halberds of the Royal Altdorfs. Black Lions are unfortunately a little obstructed. It looks like they're probably going after Faye, but she's actually covered right now in Men-at-Arms. Regrowth has gone down on her once more. She's had to cast 2 regrowths on herself. And if you ever find yourself casting kind of healing spells on your caster, you know it's not going particularly amazing. Outright starting to swoop around the flank here. They have a ton of ammunition at the moment, can focus fire down those peasants. And it looks like the men of the Empire are certainly coming into their own here, with that second Paladin being forced off once again because of the terror route. And that is the weakness of Paladins. They can indeed struggle with terror quite a bit. Balthasar Gelt trying his little heart out here to chase off the Paladin. Royal Altdorf Gryphites should be enough, though, to seize the day. Spearmen have returned to the fray, and the Fae Enchantress is having to charge in here quite riskily, of course, to try to shut down the range potential of the Empire, but they have so many options. Okay, you can hunt down the Black Lions, we're just going to shoot you with Outriders, and all that remains alongside the Fae is some Battle Pilgrims. There's peasants who may return, but yeah, that Paladin has indeed been shattered now, going to allow the Royal Altdorf Gryphites and Balthasar Gelt to come back into the fray once more. Fae Enchantress has a little tussle with some Outriders, but she is beelining for these Black Lions. If she's going to lose today, she wants to take down these goddamn contraptions of the Empire who've done so much damage to her and her compadres. She does manage to do a pretty good hit on the Outriders, actually catch them out a little bit there, and their leadership does waver for some time. There are now going to be some spearmen, though, who can hopefully hold the line, and let's get the Black Lions firing one more volley, perhaps. Nope, they are going to have to run for their lives. A Searing Doom does discourage the Battle Pilgrims from advancing. They are going to get cycle charged now by Outriders, which they're not going to enjoy whatsoever. Fae Enchantress tries to finish off the Spearmen, but Outriders are now firing quite comfortably into her, and the Royal Altdorf Gryphites are on the prowl. These bad boys have done so much work today, killing both Paladins and getting rid a lot of the Bretonnian kind of outer elements of their force as well from the offset. Fae Enchantress is going to go in with Fear of Fae popped on her, up in her melee attack to 86, which is certainly very impressive. Doing massive damage, and you can see many Royal Altdorf Gryphite has fallen. Plague of Rust is going down on her, lowering her armor to 0. I don't think the Overcast is actually necessary there, because I don't think she's going to have enough armor anyway, but, you know, you make these decisions in the heat of the moment, and she's now just been obliterated from all angles. Her Battle Pilgrims have failed her, and with a last charge, she will run, flee before the might of the Black Lions and the Royal Altdorf Gryphites. A Pyrrhic victory for sure. Not much left but on the Empire side at all by the end game there. But a victory for mankind nonetheless. Or can it really be a victory for mankind when you've slayed more manlins? I guess I'll let you guys decide in the comments down below. Hope you enjoyed that one. Well played to the might of the Black Fawn and Maximus. A really good fun game. Both going pretty off meta as well, which I do love to see. And I'm very excited to see how much damage value and damage dealt the Black Lions and other units got. But before we get there, if you guys did enjoy the video, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up down below, as well as subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. We do drop Total War Warhammer content every single day, as well as streams. In fact, we're probably going to be streaming a good versus evil King of the Hill tonight, if I can get a cheeky little nap beforehand and recover some of my strength. But yeah, that was a good fun one. Comment down below as well on who was your MVP in the battle, what was your favourite moment, or just yell quack at me, tell me how your day went, and all that good stuff. I really do appreciate all the comments. It was a joy to read them all. Also, there are links down below in the description. If you would like to see your replays up on the channel, just like the Black Fawn here, you can submit them via my Discord. There's a link down below. You can also chill out with a load of cool people there, get involved in events I host, and hone your Total War Warhammer skills. There's also links to a Patreon account down below if you want to support the channel, and if you want to get the new DLC or pretty much any game on Steam, including Total War Warhammer 3 at a discounted price, there's a link to my Games Planet account just down below. But yes, on to the good stuff, the real reason we're here. Balthasar Gelt, 690 damage value. Not amazing, but there was key damage value there. Got rid of the peasant archers, which could have caused big problems for this Empire build. So, yes, it wasn't the best damage value, but it got rid of key targets, and that is what is important. Plus, some well-placed Plague of Rust really did neuter the effectiveness of those paladins. Spearmen and swordsmen in the front line actually had a bit of a field day, getting a lot of kills across the board. Damage value, some units was really poor, but others, I mean, 973 on halberds, 802 on swordsmen. That's some really glorious stuff. Sigma Sons fared a little bit worse, but the real MVPs certainly was in this cavalry contingent, as well as the glorious Black Lions. The Royal Altdorf Gryphites, 2,739 damage value, 80 kills on big targets as well, taking down enemy characters as well as cavalry. Outriders did a solid job themselves, 1,327 damage value and 1,009 is pretty disgusting on these units. Grenade launchers did kind of struggle a little bit to get on top of their kind of priority targets, the ones they really want to start to eviscerate, the Battle Pilgrims, the Men-at-Arms and other such units, but still got some pretty solid damage value, 709, 460, and the Black Lions, my god, my MVPs for sure, 133 kills, over 12k damage dealt, and 3,106 damage value. They roared this day and did some pretty good work. Fey Enchantress, always a solid pick, 127 kills, 10,000 damage dealt and 1,018 damage value, but a lot of their kills were on the lower tier infantry on the Empire roster. As for Paladins, 176 and 743 damage value, not that great, really finding themselves in tricky situations up against the true rulers of cavalry, it would seem, which is those glorious Gryphites. Peasants, both got 10 kills, not bad for peasants, I applaud you. Men-at-Arms across the board really did struggle. The Battle Pilgrims fared better, getting more kills, but again, the damage value was pretty weak. 136 on this unit, though, is very impressive nonetheless. The Peasant Archers did really good. 771 damage value, 979, only 316 and 452 on the other two units. Those Syrian Dooms slowly racking up the damage there. Knights Errant got 98 kills. They did probably the best out of all the cavalry, 746 damage value. The other knights really did struggle quite a bit. The more expensive Knights of the Realm, 400 and 841 damage value apiece, and only 320 on this other unit. These guys not going to be getting upgraded to Knights of the Realm or Grail Knights or any of that stuff anytime soon. Trebuchet did okay as well, 664 damage value, but didn't really have any fantastic targets. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Until next time, peace, peace. And as always, stay awesome.